an Estonian company. They provided the whole new government infrastructure for Estonia based on blockchain. And they're trying to bring that into the UK and across the world, and we're working with them on that. So that's another place where governments have worked. In America, the SEC have been very hostile, and I think that's a protection of vested interests, and is probably not currently acting in the best interests of their progress. So they're in a way today slightly outside the story.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because they were at the peak of the story with the internet.
Yeah.
Maybe a little left behind with smartphones, where they're actually made in China and Korea. They managed to brand them. They may have missed. It's possible they missed the blockchain one. We don't know. Things can change.
Yeah, you're right. So what do you think about investing in blockchain, in the medical blockchain space?
Well, of course, people are always waiting for the market to be high before they invest, or at least ordinary investors. Of course, the people have done very well investing when the market was low. And I think that crypto itself, we have no indication of how it's going to go. But with technology that is based around blockchain, we know that there is a definite market. We know there's growth. So this is like coming in Apple in 1978 or Google in 1999. You're coming in, it's going to grow, and it's going to grow rapidly and fill every possible niche that is around. And you want to come in at the beginning, because if you come in later on, basically, it's just like an ordinary investment. So that's it. So it will get.
Yeah. Start now or start early.
Yeah, I think so. But you need to come in to someone who's got actual contacts, not just technology, but actual plan of taking it out to the world. So there's lots of technology. Some of it will be very good, but won't be taken up. Some of it will be good, but doesn't have the right team or connections or vision to move forward. You need to find someone who's moving forward, who's got the plan, got the short-term plan as well, and got the vision, which is made real by having real customers lined up in the pipeline.
Okay. So in your last answer, you talked about crypto, and I'm just curious, have you ever dealt with crypto, and did you have like a massive fail, or did you have like success? What's your experience?
This is a terrible place to say this. I was never a believer. I didn't have the great belief that crypto would the current generation of crypto would automatically go up.
Yeah.
So I never put a lot of my own money in. I did find that I paid for things in crypto, and my experience was that by moving it out of crypto as fast as I could, that gave me the best return. But I think that reflects the current generation. That reflects the investing history of current crypto. But we're talking about cryptocurrencies as they exist, not about crypto investments. And I think that there are crypto investments that are going to be extremely exciting. So investments in the crypto space where there is a product and there's a future, it's amazing. When obviously with things like Bitcoin, even the idea that, can you imagine buying a cup of coffee with Bitcoin, how long it would take and how cold the coffee would be? The technology isn't there yet. Even with Ethereum, if you're trying to use it as a means of investment, you're competing against major governments who are going to be coming in with their own cryptos as well. So with their own cryptocurrency, and they'll back those and they'll stabilize them.
Okay.
We know certainly that the British government are working on crypto, and they've had a stable currency stable and growing for 400 years. So they're not going to create something that crashes.
Yeah, that's understandable. So what are some good practices to bear in mind when considering a career in this field?
When considering
a career in this field, good practices or best practices?
Good practice for a career. Get
Mm-hmm.
experience. Make sure that you have hands-on experience. Have a portfolio of projects you've already done, which means going out and interning.
Okay.
Coming out with just paper qualifications is you're only going to get jobs in somewhere where they're not discerning enough to check whether you can do things. Because it's often the case, unless you're highly experienced in other things, that you launch in, you think you can do something with paper qualification. Actually, it covers only the subset of knowledge that your professors were able to teach you, or your course conveners were able to teach you. It's in the first couple of years of working in industry that you suddenly become productive. And the way to do that is to actually go out and get hands-on experience, intern, volunteer, get your hand, or just do your own projects. Make stuff yourself so that when you talk to someone in industry, you can talk with first-hand experience rather than having to just say the words.
Yeah. So when did you, okay, you've always been in the sciences, but what year did you actually like get into blockchain?
So it was only actual blockchain 2017. So
2017, okay.
But the technologies around blockchain, cryptographic hashing, distributing databases, probably about as long as blockchain's been around, or maybe. So describing systems which are very blockchain in technical specifications which are very blockchain-like, probably about as long as blockchain's been around. I've been writing stuff down about we have to hash the pointers of the database, that sort of thing.
Okay.
It's sharing. So it's convergent. What's needed converges on what actually happens to be in blockchain.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to our penultimate question. And this person is asking, what is the average pay for someone who's working in the medical blockchain space?
That's a tricky one because it varies so much and is not dependent on skill.
Okay.
And from the UK, it's slightly different anyway. The profile is different. So it varies between maybe twice as 50% more than the average graduate, high end of computer science graduates. For someone who's got some hands-on experience, we're looking at the top end of someone coming out of university. If they've worked on a couple of blockchain projects, either on their own or as interns, they'll push them up to the top end. Mm-hmm. In the UK, there's a very inflated market due to the financial sector. So there are people who put from themselves as blockchain experts who are paid maybe $2,000 a day and aren't necessarily probably.
Yeah.
Very variable market.
Okay. So our last question is asking, does the budget depend on implementation of blockchain technologies? For example, the development of blockchain technologies in banks versus in games or versus in the medical field?
Can you explain that again? Does the technology?
Yeah, like if depending on the field you're in and you want to leverage blockchain, do you think that the budget varies? Like, do you think someone? Yeah. Okay. What's the cost?
So I think it's quite likely that different fields will find different blockchain technologies.
Yeah.
Well, so some performance will be more important, some security will be more important. There is obviously in the financial sector concerns whether quantum computing will crack the hashes, for example. Mm-hmm. And I imagine that is going to be less important where the data doesn't cause the whole system to collapse. Whereas if you have a situation where in the future where hacking can destroy the system, then you need to plan now for that. So different. On the other hand, performance and what hardware is things need to be run on also it's going to vary from sector to sector.
How do you see the medical blockchain space working with bionics? Like,
That's a very interesting one. The thing about blockchain, of course, is that you're going to take a permanent record of every transaction. So if this is some part of your body, it's a question of whether you want a permanent and possibly public record of every action that you ever take.
Yeah.
um, so if you had a bionic eye or bionic eye, would you want everything you ever see to be recorded, or every
Yeah.
location that you've been to, or every movement your arm does? It would be tremendously useful within a field to develop um, new algorithms for control of bionic parts, for example. Because just in the same way that medical blockchain, and IoT with medical information, we find that very useful to be able to take in the data and apply generalized AI algorithms to see if we can find trends. And that will be the same case there, that if you do that for how does a bionic limb interact, how does it behave in different situations, getting that massive amount of data, analyzing it, and auditing it, so using the blockchain, very useful. But I would be very reluctant to have something where my every action was placed on the blockchain. and
Yeah.
And
So
shape.
you're in the industry, but you're still very cautious.
I think it's a place where privacy really does matter, or I think for many people, privacy will really matter.
Okay.
It's a question there of how public is the blockchain, and of course the performance of the blockchain, because you're looking at a lot of data if we're looking at interaction. On the other hand, if these, like any high value item, if these bionic parts are manufactured and distributed, you may want to know the authenticity of those parts. And so having serial numbers stored on blockchain would still work, and having component numbers and service histories of your artificial arm or whatever, or your mechanical brain implant.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have an electronic brain implant, you may want that very, very thoroughly audited. And so there's a sense there, but you may not want every process that happens in it to be audited.
Yeah, makes sense. Reminds me of a certain Black Mirror episode. Okay. This brings us to the end of the second segment. But before we close, is there anything you want to add? Any question you thought we were going to ask, but we didn't? Something to share?
I think there are so many different things that it's difficult, so many different possibilities here that it's very difficult to
pick one.
To pick one, and to know people's thoughts can go all over the place with this, and space of valid exploration in the field. So there's nothing I can think of at the moment. But,
okay. If we have any more questions, we'll reach out to you. So thank you so much. It's been a great session, and we can't wait to share it with the community. We thank our sponsor, Scripterium, once again. We thank you, Dr. Baker, for your time, your patience, and we thank everybody who has tuned in on YouTube, Facebook, or in the community. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, remember to sign up so that you hear everything that we just said in this interview, and you also join us in subsequent interviews. So that's it from Newconomy, and we'll see you next time.